Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome back to another episode of Worth the Hype, right? So, today in this episode, we are not talking about a watch, unfortunately, even though this is a watch channel. We are talking about a ring or a ring. I don't know what you call it. It is ring watch, ring clock, ring timepieces, essentially, right? So, it's the Seiko, not Seiko, sorry, scratch that, Casio ring watch, right? So, on the 50th anniversary of Casio watch, they had decided to launch something special, right? Decided to launch uh, this particular watch that fits in your ring, if that makes sense, right? If you are watching this on YouTube, you would see the particular images over there, which illustrate how it essentially looks like, right? It just essentially imagine a entire watch that is fixed in circumference, being minimized down into a ring size format that you could loop it into onto your ring, right? That's essentially what it is. Doesn't come with anything or whatsoever. There's no sensors in it to track heart rate or measure any fitness. It's just a ring that happens to also have a small display that also shows the time. That's pretty much it, right? It retails for $120, and that's all it is. Anything else you want to add in, Woody?
So I think this is a very interesting product as it stands. It comes at a very interesting timing also, because people are now, I think there are more and more tech enthusiasts who are used to smart rings, right? So the idea of wearing a bigger size ring, and I would expect that this ring watch that Casio released is meant to be worn on your index finger anyway, not on the smaller fingers, if anything. You need as much space as you can, because otherwise you're gonna have an issue putting it keeping full functionality of all your fingers, right? I get why it's interesting. It's a product no one saw coming. Although my better half reminds me that back in the day, this used to be a thing, and she's more fashion inclined than I was, so she could be right, and I'm not going to check on that. But yes, it's a nice change of pace, if you like. For those of you who are into double wristing, now you can triple wrist. It's two watches and the third watch on your finger, right? So, interesting product. That's all I'll say to it. And I guess we'll go in more detail when we talk about the criteria.
Fair enough. All right. So, moving on to the particular scoring criteria. The first one, is it worth it at retail? Right. $120 to have something really quirky, right? When I first look at it on paper, it probably doesn't make much sense. Because as a watch lover or watch enthusiast, you're always going to have something on your wrist anyways, right? So does it make sense for this is to be worn on your ring as well? On your finger as well, and you have two, one for each time zone. It is supposed to be like that, or you're supposed to just wear one on your ring and that should be your watch for the day? So it's sort of like in a really weird position. However, I think this piece is not really meant for any practical reason. That's how I see it. And disclaimer here as well, I managed to secure one during the restock, and that is apparently the final restock, and it's fully final sale, and it's all totally sold out right now. But it's a very interesting piece for a collecting point of view, right? It's the 50th anniversary for Casio, and they decided to launch something special. And it's probably something that people are going. If I'm Casio, what I'll be thinking is that these are probably people that have multiple G-Shocks, multiple Casio, multiple watch already. So why not we do something different to really uh, give these collectors something a little bit different to add into the collection, right? It may not be something that you would actually use it practically, but that's fine, right? So that's actually how I see it. Why I want it is probably for the 50th anniversary celebration, and it's something cool to collect. Probably will not wear it as something that we utilize, and even if I do, it's really awkward to view the time from there, right? You're not going to view it as how you view your the time from your wrist distance because that's going to be too small. It's going to be like that, and you probably look really weird trying to view your time with the ring this close to you, right? So I'm just putting in the collector's hat and not really a watch person's hat. This, it's going to be absolutely worth it, being limited production, for someone who likes to collect something special. And if you're a fan of Casio or slash G-Shock as well, it's definitely something worthy to add into your permanent collection. Actually, as for collectability, more so than a utilization purpose. So it's a full one for me over here. Over to you, Woody.
Well, I think the way to look at this product, and one thing that James mentioned earlier is very important. It's sold out, and it didn't take long to sell out, right? I think when they first dropped it, first cycle was end last year. They disappeared almost instantly everywhere it was sold. Even when they restocked, it didn't take very long for all of it to disappear again, right? So this is clearly a hype product that fits the bill in every which way and form. And the way I look at it is as follows, right? Rightfully so, because it's different. And I think if you're buying this, you're really not buying it to tell the time. It's a bit like buying a piece of fashion lifestyle jewelry, right? It's not, it's fun that you can tell the time. It's not, you're not buying it to tell the time. And that's where, even though I made the joke at the start about like triple wristing now and whatnot, right? But in truth, if you have this on your finger, you're still going to be wearing either your Apple Watch or another watch to tell you the time, because it's almost silly to be doing like this, right? To try and read the time. It's you have so many other ways to do that, like just looking at your phone as well. So it's really a fashion thing. And I think from a fashion thing, I give it a 0.5 because you need to really think that it's worth the fashion and lifestyle value in order to get it. You are still paying what is effectively $120 for something you have to really buy into. And I even argue that there might be other cooler lifestyle products that you might be able to get. But for what it is, I'm on the fence. It's a lot to ask for something that I'm not even sure. And James, you might want to correct me later, right? I don't even know how the battery is going to be changed on this thing. So, and I don't even know what is easy to get that battery. Unlike, let's say, your standard Casio G-Shocks, those batteries are bloody easy to change. You can almost buy it off any electronics store and do it yourself even. But for this one, I really don't know. So you're paying all for the lifestyle, and I get it. In fact, I will say this though, even though I gave it a 0.5, even if it stops working, you will still be able to wear it. It doesn't matter. It has that factor, right? So the more you place into that fashion lifestyle factor, the more it's worth it at retail to you. The less it is, and the less you won't even look at it. So for me, it's like I saw it both times. In fact, I remember, I think, James, I was the one that told you about it both times, right? And there was no itch for me to even get it. So for me to score a 1 here would be a bit strange. So I gave it a 0.5. Back to you, James.
Right. Before we move on, I think let's talk about in terms of the build of this as well, right? So it's a full function watch with 3 tiny buttons that you could click on to adjust the timing and so on, right? So it's not something that you can't do anything with it. It's not something that's not functional. It's a full functioning watch, and it's water resistant as well. So classic Casio build. It's meant to build like not to be worn and abused, right? From what I understand is the battery, it's changeable, and it's changeable by removing the glass adhesive from the top. So I'm not sure if that's going to cost a lot to do that, to ensure that it's still water resistant and so on. That's something, it's a little bit of an unknown. I'm not sure if anybody is able to do it, or that this has to go back directly to Casio to change it, right? That's a little bit of a question mark, but essentially, yes, it's a solid piece over there, and all the components and electronics goes through the top, and it's sealed by glued on with the glass. And you have to remove it. You have to heat it up, remove the glass adhesive, take all the parts out, change the battery, and put it back in. That's essentially the constructions of the entire watch, right? So yes, if that's something of a long-term concern that you have in terms of replacing the battery, then maybe that's something you need to be wary of. But I think this is a matter of whether it's cheap enough to replace or whether it's going to be expensive because of the hassle of removing it. There's no easy unscrewing and changing a battery. You have to essentially disassemble the entire thing in order to get a new battery. Yeah. I hope that
Ooh,
answers your question, Wei.
painful.
Yeah.
Painful. Ooh, okay.
Right enough. All right, moving on next. Is it worth it on the secondary market, right? So the price right now are almost double, not quite there yet, for a ring, right? So one, I would say, I raised a few points here. I think one, there has been a total of times of 2 or 3 restock after the first initial run. And no one knows exactly how much was produced, but I don't think it's going to be a small number. I think it's going to be quite a big number over here. And if I would play the whole speculation game again, I'm quite sure at you're able to get a lower price in a like a close future as well, right? Something that you're able to get once the hype has died down a little bit. So I don't think that's something that you should be paying so much for a Casio nonetheless, and especially for a ring watch. If you are paying in terms of the premium for the secondary market for this particular ring watch, you are better off buying multiple Casio watches. That's my opinion. Yeah, unless you are a die-hard Casio / G-Shock fan and you really want to own something limited edition and something that you really can't uh, buy anymore, then yes, that's probably your only reason to buy on a secondary market. But other people, right, nah, I think this is a pure zero for me over here. Yep, over to you.
Easy one for me here. Not worth it. If you want to get it, try and get it at retail or when someone gets bored of it. It's a seasonal sort of thing. I don't think it. There's a reason it fell out of style and then came back in for a while. It's the typical definition of a fashion product, right? I do suspect that many years down the road, it'll become trendy again. It's one of those things. So when come that time, you'll probably find it for cheap if someone's battery is still working as well. But again, I make the case that when you're buying this, it's really cool that it works, but you're not really buying it for that alone. So don't buy on the secondary market. Try and see if someone's just bought it for the hype of it and decided, maybe it's not for me. You might be able to score a good deal from somebody that way. Don't feed any of the flippers or people trying to scalp you or anything of that sort. Back to you, James.
Right. So on the next one, which is aesthetic, it's just quite difficult, right? It's like to judge an aesthetic for a ring and stuff. Do I judge it zoomed in or do I judge it zoomed out? As in, like, do I judge it from the watch design itself or do I judge it on how it looks on my finger? I think that's a very tricky thing, which I was like thinking, does it make sense here as well? Okay, so I would just say my score first and I'll explain. I think I gave it a 1. I give it a 1 because on how it looks zoomed in, right? How it looks itself, how it resembles a metal Casio watch. And it just looks like a miniature version of it. And in a certain extent, you can say it looks cute, right? It's just fun, tiny pieces that looks and resembles the actual watch very, very, very similarly. And it works as well, right? So I think from that point of view, I think there's a full mark on the aesthetic. But if you were to judge it on whether it looks cool as a ring, I think you probably look a little bit weird, right? When people look at you, it's like let's just say you're wearing the Casio ring, holding a beer and stuff, and nobody says like, "Hey, cool ring, man." It's like people will find it intriguing and say like, "Hey, what's that?" It's like it's a little bit weird. That's like jutting out your fingers so much and so on. So that's why I say I despite me owning this, you'll probably not see me wearing out with on my finger, right? Maybe to a certain like watch gathering, I'll wear it out for fun, but that's me knowing that it really doesn't look good. Right? Nobody says like, "Oh, cool ring," right? If you want something like that, then look somewhere else. You could probably find a cheap looking silver ring that very much be a better fashion accessory over this, right? So this is very much not for you to wear out and look cool in a way. So as a ring point of it, it's actually going to be a big zero for me. But I'm judging it as like a piece by itself, right? Yeah. Over to you, Woody.
I like where you're going with this
Yeah.
because the way I see it is, as a watch enthusiast, I'm sometimes also guilty of enjoying a timepiece off the wrist as it is on the wrist, right? Sometimes even more off the wrist than on the wrist. It's just the visual appeal. And so when I look from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm not even a ring wearer for smart rings or whatnot, although it has piqued my interest before. So from an aesthetic standpoint, how I look at it is as follows. One look at it, is it interesting? Yes. Does it look like a Casio from a first glance? If yes, they've done a really good job, and it does. And I think by being able for them to miniaturize the whole thing, yet keep the essence of that Casio look, including the display and whatnot, I think props to them. Miniaturization that's not easy to pull off aesthetics wise. They've done a good job there, and it is a conversation starter. In fact, I'd go as much as to say, if you're wearing it out, you're intending for it to be something to start a conversation, right? And so that people go like, "What on earth is that on your finger?" Right? And it'll be interesting. They'll want to see it, stuff like that. And I will find it very strange for anyone to say it looks bad, especially how ubiquitous Casio watches are. There's a certain cool factor that someone has a miniaturized version of a Casio on their finger. So for me, it's a full mark there. Back to you, James.
Fair enough. Right. Moving on next is horological feature. Right. So this is very interesting as well. Uh, I would say initially I thought I want to give them props for the ability to make it so tiny and yet functional. But to be very honest, I don't know enough in terms of the technology aspect of it and whether making such small motherboard to run this is actually a innovation or is something that is just very simple for them to do. I'm not sure. So ultimately, I end up giving them a zero over here. Right. I think one of the big reasons as well is that I feel like there's a little bit of a missed opportunity over here. If they actually went into the path of making this a smart ring, which they do have the technology with existing G-Shocks right now with like the heart rate sensors behind the G-Shocks and everything like that. That could be really cool, and that's something that I would actually wear it. Imagine a one of the biggest issues right now I have with smart rings is that there's no display. At least in my personal use case, because I wear a smartwatch, because during my runs, I like to look at what pace I'm running at and how many more kms that's remaining during my running course, right? So if there is actually a ring with display, which this fits the case, and it does all the health tracking and so on, I might actually wear it for a proper usage, right? For this watch, but obviously the price may then be 10x or 20x in that case. So, but yeah, I think perhaps this is a trial from Casio as well to test out. Is that okay? What is the acceptance rate for people with a ring timepiece? And maybe perhaps in terms of the next iteration where they go, they will start including the health tracker aspect into it as well, right? But ultimately, right now, it's going to be a zero for me. Yep. Over to you, Woody.
So I took a different stance. I said,
Mm,
yes, I'm finally more generous than James. Okay, so
mm,
I think the idea. So let's just put it this way: the fact that you've miniaturized something to maybe 1/5 of it, and I think the key thing here is everything still works. So the buttons still work, the chronograph still works. It's still a fully functional, be it electronic, but it still all works, right? So I take a lens very similar. So some of you who are deep into the hobby may have heard of something called the JLC, the CRW-001, where they miniaturize a watch so small that it fits into a small part of a bracelet or a necklace, right? To miniaturize and keep what is still called timekeeping, chronograph functions, and even if, yes, maybe manufacturing was not as difficult as a mechanical piece, I have to give it something. Now, whether you're actually going to use it at that tiny place, I doubt it. But it's still a cool fact that you know, instead of it being I think, James, I remember at some point in time before this even came out, there were these capsule things that they were doing, Casio was doing, where it's a non-functional G-Shock or whatnot, right? And those were completely non-functional. The fact that they managed to put something functional in this, whether you can reasonably use it with your tiny fingernails or whatnot, I still think it's a feature that no one can take away from Casio. So it's a 0.5 from me. Only because even though it's a cool feature, you're not gonna really be using it other than telling the time. Back to you, James.
Fair enough. Right, next, wearability. Right, I think this is the smallest luck to luck watch ever reviewed. If that helps. So yeah, but looking at this, wearability is going to be a 0.5 for me because, one, you aren't able to buy the ring in multiple different sizes, right? But obviously, for production reasons as well, it's going to be hard to, especially being a limited edition run, right? Especially hard to cater to so many different ring sizes and so on. So what they have, it's a standard 20 millimeter diameter ring size, and they give you spacers available, right? So if you have a smaller finger size, you would need a bigger spacers. I think they give up to two different spacers and so on, right? So there could be a scenario that neither of those spacers fit your particular ring size, and you're not able to wear it comfortably. But even with spacers as well, you're going to have parts jutting out at the bottom of it, right? Because ultimately you have spacers here, so you have the ring jutting out more out of your finger, right? That's just how it works. There's no two ways about it. That's the easiest way they could go about it, while maintaining, without giving them too much of a headache in production, right? So with that saying, even though I feel that most people that buys it will probably not wear it, but for those who wants to, they may actually do face a problem in terms of wearability, right? So therefore, I have to mark it down. I'll give it a 0.5 over here. Yep.
Very simple for me. If I were one to buy this, right, I won't actually be wearing it. It's just cool as a item, as a visual item. I mean, you wear it from time to time, but almost immediately, the moment I have to use my hand, I'll take it off my finger already, right? And so I'll give a wearability of 0. But in this case, if I were ever going to pick one up, it's just for the novelty and the cool factor about it. I might even turn it into like a zip dongle or something like that, right? You just hang it on something and it's just cool by itself. Um, it's just like how I actually know of people who take a G-Shock and hang it to their back because it's an easy way to not have to wear anything and check the time because the display is quite big and all that. Right? I can imagine a world where that works like a little, and people are all into bag tags and whatnot. So turn this into a bag tag or something, by a very famous thing called a labubu. I guess could be the watch enthusiast equivalent, perhaps, something along those lines. But you're not going to wear it. The point is, I don't see many people wearing it. I won't, so it's a 0 for me. Granted, also from all the practical standpoints that James mentioned. So, but having said that, I don't see it as something you'll wear. I just feel like it's one of those cool things that you have around and nice to have a conversation about it. You put it on a ring to a watch meet, and people just play around with it and fidget with it for a bit, and then it goes back into on your table or something like that. That's the way I look at it for a ring watch. Back to you, James.
I think you raised a good point actually. Now that I'm thinking of, right, when I get my hands on mine,
Yeah.
I want to see how heavy and how bulky it is. If it's not that bad, I would actually consider wearing it as a necklace. Right. Yeah.
It crossed
Just
my
wearing,
mind, so I'm nodding
yeah.
because it crossed my mind.
But let's just see. If you see the next podcast, you have it. I have mine on a necklace. Then yeah, I think that works. But yeah. Oh, until then,
Yeah,
I think
don't
yes.
judge. Don't judge because I think it was Taylor Swift or Rihanna that did something like that, where
Oh,
they
really?
wore a watch as a choker or an
Oh
anklet.
man.
So yes.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Oh, let's see. Let's see. Okay, so that pretty much sums up our scoring. Gives me a 2.5 and a 2 for witty. That brings it down slightly below the half of 5, right? So it's a 4.5 out of 10. Final words on this is that ultimately my view is that it's a collection piece and it's a damn cool collection piece. But for practical reasons, you're probably not going to utilize it much. Yeah. How about you, Woody?
I think that's the right way to go. Just don't buy it over retail. If you like it, get it. It's at the point where if you're in the market for it and there's a cool factor to it, there's so many things out there that are something like that. Which is why actually maybe it's poignant that I brought up that Labubu thing as well, right? Because actually no one needs it. It's cool. It's a statement piece. You treat it in that same category. If you find value there, that's where I would say you'll get it. But if you're the sort that when you saw it, meh, then move away. That's how I look at it.
Fair enough. I think that's a great way to wrap up for this episode, right? Welcome to the first non wristwatch that we have actually reviewed. Maybe we'll do more in the future. Pocket watches, etc., etc. That's something that we will look at as well, right? Like I said, we're committed, very much committed to do a weekly release here on out. So we have lots of episodes to cover many, many different watches, right? So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.